Hi, and welcome to Amy's Opinions. I'm here with my mom, Dee, and my friend Devin. And today we're going to actually be talking about sleep training your infant. Now, this is something I never did with my kids. I never really seemed to have an issue with my children wanting to sleep train them because they slept for up to 4 hours at a time. And I was fine with that. I did feed them a little solids a little early, like at 4 months to help with their sleep at night, just so I could get my sleep. Mom, did you sleep train us?
A little bit. Actually, your dad trained you more than I did.
Okay, what about you, Devin? Because I know you have a lot of opinions on this, and this is something that's actually a newer concept than when my children were little, because I had my kids over 20 years ago.
Yeah, so I feel like the whole sleep training is like you put them down in their bed and then they just go to sleep on them like by themselves. Is that what you guys feel like sleep training is? Or just like training them to be able to no, I'm in the crib, I need to go to sleep.
Now,
Hi.
see, I never did that with my kids until they were toddlers. I would cuddle
Yeah.
and rock them to sleep, put them in the swing until Maggie's big butt broke it. But, that's what I used to do with my children and then we'd had set bedtimes for our kids, when they were younger and they were playing and they weren't, their toddler age and they're up and about, the bedtime was 7:30. And then when they hit like third grade, 8 o'clock and things like that. But I'm talking about, I never let my kids cry it out because my kids, even as infants, were stubborn enough that I would set a timer for 20 minutes to let them cry, and they didn't shut up.
Now, when you kids were little, that was the recommendation. And I would put you in your cribs and you would cry in the bedroom and I would cry in the living room. And dad would hold me back to keep me from going in picking you up. And you usually went out about 19 and a half minutes.
Now, see, I had the military police called on us for Lewis because I was trying to do that. And they thought I was just letting my child scream and no one was home. And I had to explain to him that no, I was trying to teach my son how to self-soothe. And he was fine. He was just throwing a tantrum, and he was 4 months old throwing a tantrum.
What?
Devin, what do you try?
It depends on the day and it depends on how much crying we've had throughout the day,
Okay.
honestly. So sometimes when I put her down, she'll just go straight down or I'll rock her. I'm a little mix of everything, but it hurts my heart. I don't think I'm a cried out mom. At least 5 minutes, I'm like, okay, come on, rocking and patting, all the things. But there's studies now that say that the cried out for long periods of time is damaging neurologically in the long run. I don't know how true that is, but it's damaging to me because it hurts. It hurts my heart.
It does. And, usually when I set the timer for 20 minutes, that was so I could do dishes or I could hold a load of laundry and not have a baby, attached to me. And that was, before they could scoot and move around. It only seemed to work if they were in the swing.
Yeah, the swing is our best friend too.
Now, do you have a swing that goes side to side or forward or
Mhm.
backwards?
Just side to side.
Okay, that seemed to work the best for my children.
I didn't have a swing until you were about 6 months old. And then a neighbor loaned me a swing. And it went back and forth. And you loved it. But I found what worked the best and made me the happiest is if you would fall asleep while I was nursing you and I could just put you down. Because if you cried, I just couldn't handle it. And sisters.
Now, what I like is that's my bonding time. Is when the kids, when I was rocking them to sleep and cuddling them to sleep instead of letting them self-soothe. That was when I bonded with my babies. That helped me relax as a mom. Because let's face it, being moms are stressful. You're worried about someone constantly other than yourself, and then if they're safe and if you're doing everything right, and there's just an extra level of anxiety that you have raising your children. And that was just my time to get those cuddles. Because trust me, when they get older, they're not going to want to cuddle as much. And that was my time to get my cuddles in, and it soothed me. And it was beneficial. It made me feel like I had accomplished something.
When you were about 4 months old, Grandma Dorothy showed up with a rocking chair that had belonged to my grandparents, and that was a big help. It not only had arms that I could rest my arm on when I was nursing, but I could rock you kids. And that was kind of a turning point for putting you guys to sleep.
Now, Devin, what's your opinion on sleep training? Because honestly, I'm not. I thought that's when you put your babies down, you let them cry themselves to sleep at a certain time, you don't get them up. I'm not very familiar with sleep training.
Yeah, like I said, I'm kind of like midway in between it. I usually try to calm her down, not to where she's like in a deep sleep and I can set her down, she's just gonna go. I try to calm her down to where now mine doesn't take pacifier. She hates them. She spits them across the room. So that's tough, but she does like her thumb. So I'll get her to where she's like sucking her thumb and kind of like on the verge of being like in a deep sleep. And then I'll put her in the crib. And if she like gets up and starts like screaming, crying, I'll pick her back up. We'll try it again. But I just can't lay her in the crib and just let her cry. That just is so hard for me.
I can see that. It makes you cry yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, pacifiers. You said your daughter didn't. My 3 kids love the pacifier.
Yeah.
You
Most
have
kids do. Mine hates it. And I've bought like 6, 7 different brands. She hates all of them.
There's nothing wrong with that, because now they're saying pacifiers lead to like dental problems and things like that. Mom, did we have pacifiers?
Well, you had them, but you wouldn't suck on them.
What about you? Did you have a pacifier?
I don't believe so.
You're too young to remember.
We weren't allowed to suck our thumbs either when I was nipping.
Okay.
So
You weren't allowed? Is that what you said?
yes.
Because they said, when I brought her to the dentist with me, and they were saying because it's a movable thing, it can like mess up that oral palate on the top.
Uh-huh.
But I need something. She's got to have something.
Now, we never put our kids down with pacifiers because that was something that they liked. And they love their nooks. That's what we call them, their little nooks. And then when they were older, we put them down with like a sippy cup of water. Because, why not? But as far as sleep training, I don't think we ever did really sleep training. I think, letting them cry it out and self-soothe was more just so I could get some housework done. Mom?
Well, we had a different situation since I had other children when you came along. There was always somebody to distract you. And so Dad tried to let you cry it. He wasn't home. We didn't let you cry it out. And Dad finally by then you had him so wrapped around your little finger it didn't matter.
Okay. Now, what are your...
I had to let you cry it out, and then he'd go in and pick you up.
Oh, yeah, that sounds like Dad.
Uh-huh.
What are your thoughts on using a swing to soothe your baby so you can do things?
Well, our family wouldn't have eaten without it.
Fair enough.
I used it when I had to do things and you kids loved it. But back then they were the wind-up kind. So they only ran for about 10 minutes and then somebody had to go wind it up again.
Okay. Devin?
I love the swing. If I'm overstimulated and the house is a mess and I feel like I can't get anything done and she just wants to sleep on me, put her in the swing and then I can do what I need to do. She'll sleep through anything in that swing. I can vacuum, I can do dishes, I can do anything when she's in that swing.
Now, one of the things I had issues with is when I had more than one child.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with Lewis was fine. Lewis, he took his little sisters were his girls. He took care of his girls. He wanted to feed them. Alicia called him mama before she called me mama. Lewis was all about the babies. But Alicia, when Maggie was born, she was still a baby. She was only 21 months old.
Something
when Maggie was born. And she wanted to be held and rocked at the same time as the baby. And that caused a lot of issues with her and how she felt because she wanted to revert back to being a baby and cry and throw tantrums and have mommy give her a bottle even though she was no longer taking bottles. How do you handle something like that, Mom?
You drink a lot.
Well, when you can't drink.
Sometimes it helps. No, I'm just teasing. Tammy loved the new babies. She worshipped the rug you crawled on. Christy was threatened by you. So we were dealing with both sides of the coin when you came along. You loved the new babies. Your sister Cheryl reverted.
Okay.
What we did with both Christy and Cheryl is Dad would step up and he would give them attention when I was giving the baby attention. And you have to remember that Dad was basically unemployed when Cheryl was born. he was working at the post office and he as a sub, and he was guaranteed 2 hours of work a week. And he worked a lot of split shifts. So he was in and out of the house more than at any other time. And that really helped.
Are you planning on having more than one child?
Yes, I am. If I can get her to sleep through the night, I'd like to have a closer age gap than a further one.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts when you have another child and you're trying to take care of him? Because your husband's military too, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So then there's times when he's going to be gone and you're a single mom. So how do you think you're going to handle that?
I'm not sure. Honestly, I'm not sure. I feel like it depended on the kid because, like, she said, some of them did regress, some of them loved the babies. I feel like it just depends, but I don't know. I guess it depends on how much she'll understand whenever that time comes. Because if I can, talk her through it and be like, well, no, this is the new baby. You're older. You don't need a bottle. Like maybe that might work. I feel like it just depends on how she reacts.
We told our kids that it was their baby.
Mm-hmm.
Just since we had 5 girls, that was safe to say that because we never mixed up our genders. But, we made the new baby, being a big sister was a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, see, we tried that with Lewis and Alicia. And then when Maggie came along, either Alicia wanted to be right there with mom or she was with Lewis. And then Lewis and Alicia developed twin speak, which I don't know if you're familiar, but, twins sometimes have their own language. And Lewis had a huge speech impediment as a young little toddler and little boy. He was in speech therapy for years. He taught his sister to speak the same way he did because those two were close. And when they grew up, they excluded Maggie to a certain extent. There's never 2 kids that are, or it's never 3 kids that are close all at once. It's usually 2 and 2 and one kid's left out.
Well, Grandma Dorothy used to say 2 kids can play nicely, but 3 will fight.
That's been my experience with my children. So what do you think's the perfect number of children to have?
1 million.
Okay.
We wanted 7 children. I'm one of 10 children. Dad was one of 7 children. 7 children wasn't intimidating to us. And we both knew how to be poor. Somebody walked by the house and set Roscoe up. But, so we were pretty good managers. And, if we didn't have all the new stuff, we didn't care. Because our children were not only the delight of our life, they were our entertainment.
Okay.
Admit we did play with your brain a little bit, girl.
I do the same with my kids. Still do it.
Uh-huh.
Devin, what do you think's the perfect number for a family?
I feel like 3 or 4. All of my family members have 3, but it depends on if we have a boy or not.
Okay, why?
If we have 2 girls, or no, I think 3 for sure. But if we have 3 girls, we're definitely trying for a boy. But if we have a boy, we might call it quits. I feel like it just depends on how I feel during pregnancy.
Fair enough. I think you should have as many children as you can afford, depending on your lifestyle. I mean, like Mom said, she and Dad chose to live at the poverty level and have more children. We chose after Maggie was born, and we were kind of told, hey, your blood pressure and preeclampsia, you're getting close to preeclampsia and eclampsia. It's not safe to have any more babies, to stop. And we chose a different lifestyle than my parents did because we like to have toys. We like to play. We like to have toys. And so, we chose to stop with 3. And for us, that's been the perfect number. Now, we also chose to have our children young. I started having my babies at 23, and then 25 and 26. That's how old I was with each one of my 3. And we chose that so that way when our children are old enough to leave the house or be able to be on their own because, my oldest is still home and going to school, that we be young enough to do fun things. Mom, what are your thoughts?
Well, I was an older mom. I was 27.
Mom, can you move the camera again?
How's that?
I'll edit that part out. Don't worry.
Okay. I was 27 when you were born, and I had been a special education teacher. So I chose to have you kids close together because I was an older mom, and I knew the chance of birth defects increase as you age. And I wanted healthy children.
And we were.
You were healthy, yeah. Ornery, but healthy.
And we played somewhat halfway decently together.
In between fighting, yeah.
It's not my fault I taught Cheryl to go out with a fitted sheet as a parachute off the second floor. I was looking out for her. It was fire drill.
Yep. Right. You also made her drink muddy water.
No, it was witch's brew, Mom. We had rusted nails, rotted fruit. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Now
she
you
was the taste tester.
know, Devin, is to protect the younger ones from her.
Devin, what are your thoughts on how close your children should be in age and how young or old you should have when you have them?
Well, I have an 8-year and a 14-year age gap with my siblings. So I feel like it was good, like for my parents, because they had a break financially, like with college and vehicles and things like that. However, now I am across the United States and I feel like I'm not even seeing my youngest sister grow up. So that is hard. But then I also got like the second mom. So I feel like I got to practice with her a little bit and we were close in a different way. I
Okay,
would like mine to be a little bit closer in age, and I am very young starting out to have kids, and I would like to finish as young as I can.
fair enough. Now, you say, with financial responsibilities. We took the attitude with our children that they could go to college however they wanted to, but they were going to be financially responsible for it. So if we co-signed student loans for them, when they graduated, we were going to sign those loans over to them. Or like, Lewis is staying where he's living at home and working full time and going to college and paying cash for it, that's fine. When you're looking forward to the future with your daughter, what are you looking at for the financial liabilities with college and cars?
Well, I was very fortunate. My parents were able to pay for my college, but I had a lot of scholarships. I was on a softball scholarship, and then I was on an academic scholarship through nursing school. So the financial responsibility of college wasn't a major burden on them. So if she is, smart enough to have any type of scholarships, if I feel like we can financially afford it, I would love to help her out with college because then now I am in my adulthood. I'm not tied down to those student loans or anything like that. But that's just not the case for every family. And especially depending on where you go to school. I didn't go to a university. I went to two junior colleges. So it's not as expensive either. And then plus the scholarships on top of that definitely helped. But I feel like it just all depends on, the positions that she put herself in too.
Now, what about cars? Because I know with our children, we bought a stick shift to teach them how to drive. My middle daughter drives like Cruella de Vil, and she could not figure it out. So then we got a manual or a regular automatic car for her to drive. And my son ended up paying off the car that we had got for the kid car and using it trade in. What are your thoughts about buying your children cars?
Do you want me to go first?
Sure.
That is a huge like break of your heart. And then like your heart is out there on the road and you don't even like, you're not even worried about them so much as you're worried about everybody else around them because people are crazy. They don't drive very well. But I feel like, yes, I would like to get her a car. I feel like it's probably not going to be like the oldest model because I want to put safety into it just in case, a car accident were to happen. But once again, it just depends on like what position we are in financially.
Okay. Mom?
Well, we got a car for when our oldest got her driver's license. And Tammy was an okay driver. She had to have a little come to Jesus meeting with mom and dad a time or two. But for me, it was freedom because I had 4 other children and I could send her to the grocery store. Isn't that silly? But also, after she left, we had a kid's car that everybody had to share. And talk about cat fights. They didn't like sharing the car, but they didn't have a choice. And we were very limited as to where we would let them drive. Now, Amy was allowed to drive to school because she played the euphonium, and that's a heck of a big instrument for a little skinny girl to lug around. She was also expected to give her younger sister, a ride.
And I did.
Yes. And you kids work. So you basically put in your gas and all that on your own. We expected you to be responsible that way, but you weren't allowed to just take the car and go cruising like I did as a child.
Okay.
Because back at the deep end, that's what teenagers did. We cruised.
Well, fair enough. All right. So we're going to end this episode. So we're going to go round robin again. Sleep training. Yes or no, Devin?
No.
No? Okay.
No,
Mom,
I agree. No, the baby will let you know when they're sleepy.
in my opinion, I don't understand it, so I don't think I did it. And that's okay. All right. What about paying for when your teenagers are older? Actually, let's go back. Let's bump that up. How close in age should your children be, and how many children should you realistically expect to have? Mom?
I think you should have as many children as you feel healthy enough to have and you can afford to have. And you might have to make life changes. Dad and I drove old junkers. We had 5 kids in an 800 square foot house. It was tight. You kids wore hand-me-downs. So
Nothing wrong with that.
and if you're happy and your kids are healthy and you can afford to put food in their mouths, I think it's up to the individual. I don't feel like anybody should feel obligated to have 2.8 children, which was the average family size when you were little, if they don't want them. Some people just don't want children and shouldn't have them.
Okay.
But I think there's an awful lot of kids out there that needs home. So if somebody wants a child and can't have a child, there are options.
Fair enough. Devin?
I agree. 100% what she said.
All right. In my opinion, I think you should have as many children as you wish and that you can afford and to give them a healthy lifestyle. I do think, and I'm going to just touch on this briefly, that there should be some space so your body can heal in between having children. You know, I think 2 to 3 years in between children would probably be beneficial for both sibling rivalry. I can't say that.
Rivalry.
Thank you. You know, and to allow the mom's body to heal. So, because there is a lot of hormonal changes and issues and body stresses when you have babies. And that's just my opinion.
Sure.
Now, going forward with cars and colleges and other expenses for your children, should you be responsible for paying for that or should your children be responsible for paying for that? Devin?
I feel like I'm halfway in there. I feel like it would be nice to help if you can afford it. But if not, then, they are ultimately in charge of their future and they should want to set themselves up as best they can.
Okay. Mom?
You were told, all you girls were told, that college and weddings were your responsibility, that we would help where we could. And we did help where we could. And I think because you were told that from the time you were little, you kids accepted that as the norm. And we did help as much as we could. And there isn't one of you girls that we didn't help at some point, or that we still wouldn't help at some point. But I really wanted to raise responsible adults, and I felt like that was a good step in that direction.
Okay. And then we'll end with my opinion on this because it's my show. So, in my opinion, I think children do better and they respect the things that they buy or they put money forward to school, and they do better if they have that responsibility when they hit 18. I think that's a way of teaching your child to be an adult, is to have that responsibility. I think, I still help my children out. My girls who are away at school, I'll send them care packages. If they need something, we'll still pick them up because neither one of my girls have a car. We're not going to buy them a car because, one, I've seen how they drive when they drove the cars that we provided for them. And I don't want them being like that with the car that they have. 2, I can't afford it. And 3, they were given the same option as their brother. They could stay at home, go to a junior college or community college, and then go off to a 4-year university if they needed to. They could work, they could go to the university that was closer to us and commute. And they chose to go off on their own. And they made that choice as a young adult, and therefore they need to pay as making that choice as part of being an adult. And that's just me trying to teach them responsibility. Will I help them out? Yeah, 100% I'll help them out where I can. But I'm not going to pay everything. And that's it for this episode of Amy's Opinions. Please join us again next time. Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye.